Hi there. Thanks for joining me here on Conversations for Yoga Teachers. I'm your host, Karen Fabian, the founder of Bare Bones Yoga and the creator of the Momentum Magic Method, the way to become a confident teacher, one who effortlessly walks around the room, shares clear cues, easily builds sequences, and speaks from her heart, sharing authentically with her students. On the podcast, you'll hear anatomy lessons, stories from teachers, interviews with others in the field, and a dose of personal growth, because having a strong, healthy mindset is such an important piece of being a confident teacher. In addition to the podcast, follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Bare Bones Yoga for daily videos. And you'll also see a new link on both of my profiles, my Stan Store link, a literal vending machine for you to select how you best want to be supported as a teacher. There, you'll find links to the podcast, free resources, and other ways I can help you be the best teacher you can be. And don't forget, every single week, in addition to recording you a new episode of this show, I also teach yoga classes and free workshops specifically for yoga teachers. The only way to get your invite is to be on my mailing list. You can do that simply by going to my website, barebonesyoga.com, and down at the bottom, entering your email in the box. Here we go with today's show. Hi there. Welcome to Conversations for Yoga Teachers. I'm your host, Karen Fabian, and this is episode 290. I'm recording this on April 3rd. And this is going to be a special episode because I have a guest. You are going to be hearing this episode on April 8th or sometime after that. And I couldn't be more thrilled for you to hear this one, because this is an opportunity for you to really listen to someone who's dedicated her life to not just making the world a better place, but doing it in a really specific way by empowering people to take more charge of their health. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about her in a second. I just want to drop in a quick blurb for you about something special that I'm doing before I share a little bit more about my guest, and then we cut to that episode. I'm going to make this quick. This past week, I had the second session in my 4-part training, my new 4-part training, which is a group training called the It Factor training. And I'm so amazed by just the power of this group, the impact this training is having on the teachers that are in the group, that I wanted to take advantage of this quiet time between the two of us to share with you that you can still get in on this training. I call it the It Factor training because I know when you go take a class, that teacher that is teaching the class that just has it. She just has that It Factor. You know that she knows what she's doing. She's confident. She's walking around the room. She's not tripping over her words. She doesn't use notes. She's sharing from her heart. Like, those are just some of the qualities. It may look and feel different to you, but I know that you know what I'm talking about when I say a teacher that just has the It Factor. I've come up with a 4-week training, a fast track specifically designed to help you tap into that part of you so that you can teach with greater confidence, greater skill, and greater authenticity. And in this training, I'm going to walk you through those steps that you need to take so that you can have more confidence when you teach. The training is underway, but I've decided to make it evergreen, meaning you don't need to join this group. You can join any time. So to find out more about this training and to grab your spot, I actually just had a woman enroll this morning. All you need to do is go to my Instagram or my TikTok, Bare Bones Yoga, and right there on my Instagram profile, you'll see a link for my Stan Store. This is a literal vending machine for you where you can pick the option that works best for you. And in the list of options that you'll see when you click my Stan Store link, one of them is the It Factor training. My friend, this is just $444. This is for a yoga teacher who is ready to invest in herself just a small amount of 444 so that she can feel more confident when she teaches. So if this sounds like something that you want to do, go to my Instagram profile, Bare Bones Yoga, click the Stan Store link and enroll. As soon as you enroll, I'm going to write you back. I'm going to be doing cartwheels. I'm going to be saying, yay, I cannot wait to get you started. And I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do to get going. Okay, now that I've shared that with you, I want to share with you who I have on the show today. Jennifer Ragazzo is a functional wellness coach, and she and I met in a Facebook group for podcasters. She's starting a podcast. I have a podcast. We met. I loved her background. We talked on the phone, and I thought, I really want to get you on my show. Now, this is a little bit different than some of the other episodes I've done because it's not specifically about yoga, but I know for you that's listening, you're a yoga teacher, probably. You might be a woman, probably are a woman. I think I have a lot of female listeners. And if neither of those things is you, you're still going to get value from this episode. But I have a good sense of who listens to my show. And a lot of what Jennifer talks about, some of the topics have to do with women's wellness, but overarching what she talks about is how you can take better charge of your health. And now more than ever, this is such an important topic. And so I wanted to share it with you, really to empower you. So this is empowering to you. My intention here is to empower you so that you can be a better teacher because you're just investing in yourself and helping yourself to be a better person and to have a better relationship with yourself and to live in a more healthy way. So that's really where this conversation is coming from. Jennifer is a functional wellness coach. She has certifications and training in integrative nutrition, applied functional medicine, and naturopathy. She has a passion for guiding women through midlife transitions. She specializes in holistic wellness. She empowers her clients in her own program, which is Vibrant Rise Functional Wellness. It's a coaching program that helps you move beyond fatigue, anxiety, and inflammation and embrace a life filled with energy, peace, and vitality. Jennifer brings the source of love to the forefront through personalized functional health and lifestyle coaching, helping women align their physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. Jennifer starts out this episode with a really powerful personal story. And so I want you to get ready because we're going to dive right into this conversation and we are going to hit the ground running. So get ready. I was so inspired after talking with Jennifer. She is just a wealth of knowledge. She is totally committed to helping you live your best life, take charge of your health, and be empowered so that you live a healthy, long life. So with that, we're going to go to the episode, my interview with Jennifer Ragazzo. Here we go. Hi there.
Hi.
How are you?
Oops. I gotta turn up volume.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you again.
Oh.
Yeah.
How is the for you?
Oh gosh, not so good. It's kind of hailing
Huh?
and rain, cold. I mean, I feel like this is the last push
Yes.
before we're into nicer weather. We've had a couple of days that have been nice. So hopefully this is the
Yeah.
last of it.
Same. I looked at the weather and next week it's sunny. It's just like torrential downpour for the last 3 days. And I actually turned my micro, I had to like turn sometimes I'll use a microphone, but it's so sensitive. It's like picking up the thunderstorm outside. I'm like, yeah, no, we're not gonna do that.
Got
Yeah.
it. Got it. Well,
Mhm.
I'm so glad that we have a chance to do this. I loved our little pre-call we had last week, and I'm really excited to have you talk more about what is inspiring you and the kind of work you do.
Mhm.
I think what would be a great place to start, again, when we talked on the phone, I was sharing with you that my podcast is for yoga teachers, and so many of them are women, and so many of them are in the sort of 35 to 60 age range. And I think when you start to share about what you do, it's not necessarily age dependent, but I think there'll be certain topics we'll talk about that hit people at different points in their life.
Mhm.
So maybe a good place to start is for you to share a little bit about your background and what you do.
Okay, so share a little bit about my background, what I do, and then will you guide me insofar as like
Yeah, just
and
yeah,
give
we'll just have a nice conversation, just like we did on the phone.
okay, awesome. No, those are my favorite kinds. I
Yeah,
just want to make sure that I'm really blessing. So like when I'm focusing, I mean, it kind of goes both ways because your students, like they are the yoga teachers, they're helping other, well, other men and women, but other women
yeah,
who might be at this, struggling with their health, but then they also are women themselves.
of course, of course. So that's why I think when we had connected and I thought, oh, this is a great conversation both for the yoga teacher who might herself or himself have certain concerns about their health. And also in teaching people and hearing, I mean, inevitably as yoga teachers, we hear other things from our students that might not necessarily be about, the movement, the poses. And we're not in the business to give professional advice, but it's sometimes good for us to just have a bigger picture. So I think some of the topics we'll cover today will sort of broaden people's understanding of the body beyond just kind of the bones and the muscles and the joints. So yeah, so
Okay,
let's
perfect.
start. Just give us
Right.
an idea, give me an idea, share a little bit about how you got into what you do now and describe a little of what that looks like.
Sure. Okay. So my history, my health journey, I should say, has been decades and decades long. When I was a teenager, I had debilitating periods, so debilitating that I couldn't go to school and I would be vomiting and writhing in pain. And at 16, I was put on the birth control pill to try and mediate some of the awfulness in my cycles. Didn't really do very much. And at 19, when I was in college, they did exploratory surgery and they found that I had stage 4 endometriosis. And endometriosis is a condition where the endometrial lining is growing outside of the uterus. And it was all over. Everything was on my bowel and my bladder. And at that time, the gynecologist who did the surgery sat with my mom and I post-op and showed me a picture of my insides and said, wow, this is like with a very fascinated voice. This is the worst case I have ever seen in all my years of practicing. And that got stuck in my head. Little advice for anyone who's listening who may be in a profession, a medical profession, you want to always be mindful of what you're speaking into other people. So at 19 years old, I was visualizing literally because I had a picture of my insides, the worst case that my doctor had ever seen. And I was put into chemical menopause with a medication to try and control the endometriosis from further growing. It didn't really work very well. So at 21, they came back in and did a more aggressive surgery and continued me on that medication. And in the meantime, other things were popping up in my health, debilitating anxiety and depression and irritable bowel syndrome and acne that was so all over my face. So I was put on different medications for different things, migraines. So there was medication for migraines, insomnia, medication for that. And so this went on all through my 20s. And the only way that I really knew how to control my health was at the time, and we're talking 25 plus years ago, was through diet and exercise. But it wasn't diet like we're going to talk about further in this conversation today. It was dieting. So back in the 90s and early 2000s, that was when everything was fat-free, sugar-free. So a Diet Coke, a sugar-free, fat-free yogurt, and maybe a bar would be my meal. And then I'd go to the gym, and I was a teacher at the time. So I would teach all day long, and then I would go teach group fitness classes, and then I would do my own workout. And so I developed body dysmorphia, orthorexia. I had a lot of food fear, but that was the way that I really was trying to control what felt so out of control, because I would go with all of these different symptoms to different doctors and medical professionals and not ever be given any answers, but rather be given more medication and more medication. And I don't really even remember when I started to really, really feel that crappy. It was just this like continual progression of dis-ease in my entire body. So when I was in my late 20s, it was time for me to attempt to get pregnant. And I had had infertility in my mind for the last decade of my life, because that first doctor had said to me, you most likely will have trouble getting pregnant. So I also spoke infertility into my body. I believed that I was infertile. I lived my life as if I were infertile, not really knowing the truth of any of that. So when I came off the medications that were kind of keeping endometriosis at bay, insofar as it wasn't feeding it, it was cutting off estrogen. So I came off those medications, and nothing was normal. And very quickly, I did dive into the world of infertility, and we did some different things, and we ended up doing in vitro fertilization. And my first in vitro cycle failed. It was a disaster in every way. I was so anxious, wanting to control every little thing about it, not relaxing at all. And the doctor that I was working with at the time had said to me that my chances of getting pregnant were very slim unless I did another additional procedure. And he said, I really think you have premature ovarian failure. I think that's what we're looking at on top of the endometriosis. And there was something inside of me at that time, at that very young age, that it was like something clicked. And I said, I refuse to believe that. That can't possibly be true. And I took a break. I took a break from everything that I was doing, from the obsessiveness with trying to get pregnant and control. And I just spent a few months just trying to reconnect with myself and reconnect with my creator, my higher power. And I started fresh with a different reproductive endocrinologist, one that was much more positive and hopeful. I started fresh with some other things. I went to therapy. I found an acupuncturist, because at the time there was this new research study out, again, over 20 years ago, that cited a 10% increase in women who did acupuncture alongside IVF. And I thought, okay, well then I'm going to do that too. So I started acupuncture, I'm doing therapy, and I find a new doctor who was so much more positive. And I was assigned a nurse, and the nurse who was overseeing my case had a conversation that changed my entire life. She talked to me about some of the things that I was putting into my body and on my body that may be altering my hormones. And she said, listen, we're trying to control your hormones. This is a very controlled procedure. So we don't want anything that is going to interfere with that. So she talked to me about organic foods and avoiding certain things. At the time, soy milk was really popular, and I was lactose intolerant, so I drank a lot of soy milk. And we know today that that can be a xenoestrogen and mimic estrogen. And she talked to me about some personal care products. I mean, simple, over 20 years ago, but just reducing things like candles and lotions on my body. And my mind was blown, like absolutely blown. This was a massive paradigm shift, because not a single person in my decade of just going through all different health issues had ever had a conversation with me about the things that I was choosing to consume and or use in my environment in affecting my health. I mean, mind blown. And I just honestly became quite obsessed with learning more and more and more. And at the same time, I'm working with a therapist that is working on my mindset. She introduced me to Louise Hay and her power deck cards, and speaking positive affirmations about my body and myself. mind blown, right? So connection there between mind and physical body. And I'm working with an acupuncturist who very quickly picked up that I was not speaking fertility and life into my body. And he did different techniques with me where we were trying to release some of that trapped negative emotion and thinking from when I was 19 and looking at my body as being infertile so that we could flip the script on that and start speaking life. And I was doing visualizations through that entire in vitro cycle. I really, really, for the first time in my life, gave it up to God. There was a lot of surrender that was going on. Again, I had a really amazing support system as I was going through this, and I had a cycle that was polar opposite that first cycle. That first cycle that was disastrous. The second one was beautiful and perfect. And anyone who's ever gone through IVF knows that a 5-day blastocyst, getting to 5-day with a blastocyst is like the absolute ideal. And I did that, and that resulted in my first daughter and actually my son, who was a frozen embryo from that cycle. So that really was the very beginning of my journey into understanding the human body, how interconnected the human body is, a mind, body, spirit, that it's not, we can't compartmentalize our health. And for me at the time, it was a beginning, it was a catalyst into a whole world of learning and understanding. And through my 30s, other health issues started to pop up for me, autoimmune diseases. I was making a lot of changes, dietary changes, lifestyle changes, doing as much as I could. My third pregnancy was natural. She was a surprise baby. Didn't think my body would be able to do that, and it did. And no signs of endometriosis whatsoever, even to this day. Nothing, going from stage 4 to nothing at all. So I was witnessing the body's ability to heal.
Yeah.
When we get down underneath and we address function and we're looking for root cause, but I didn't really understand that quite yet. And so earlier in my 30s, it was, it was 14 years ago now, my sister was really into, like, again, into all of the health and wellness world, learning as much as I possibly could, not doing what I do today for a career. But my sister had a baby and he was born healthy, but when he was 1 week old, he contracted a virus, and the virus is human parvovirus. It would be a cold in you or I or anybody else. But in a little baby with an underdeveloped immune system, he very quickly developed a high fever, was seizing, and had encephalitis of in the brain, and almost died through that original virus. And he did survive the virus, but he was left with 40% global brain damage. And at the time, the doctors told my sister and her husband that their son would not really have a quality of life. He would be a vegetable, most likely blind, deaf, and they refused to accept that. And they thought there's got to be something. And I was there present. I was there through all of that. And I was advocating for my sister and brother-in-law with the doctors and having these conversations so I can be that other set of ears. And I remember asking, is there anything? There's got to be some sort of therapy, diet, something to help his little brain. And all we heard was no, nothing. So they did a lot of research, and they found a facility out in California that does neural movement therapy. And they moved out to California, and they gave their son every single chance he could possibly have of having a different kind of life, a life of possibilities. And they did brain-based diet and craniosacral and therapy and stem cell transplants and hyperbaric oxygen and neural movement therapy. And Carter did so many beautiful, amazing things that those original doctors said he couldn't. He nursed, he ate solid food, he was learning to crawl. And I witnessed all of this, and it was amazing to me. I felt like I was watching a miracle. And what it was really teaching me was that God is the ultimate physician, and we have to be really careful not to put limitations on ourselves, and there is always hope. And the body is so very, very amazing, and it can find workarounds. So when Carter was almost 2, he passed away from, yeah, he did. He passed away taking a nap, and a little tiny blood vessel from the original brain damage burst while he was taking a nap. And it was nothing that doctors would have ever been able to foresee. And my family at the time, he had made such an impact on us, just like what we witnessed in him. And my dad had been diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer right before Carter was born. And my dad, that cancer is a slow growing cancer, but he was given 3 to 5 years, even if he did treatment. And my dad was not wanting to even do treatment, but because he witnessed his grandson fight for his life, my dad decided to fight. And my dad did a combination of conventional, and I want to say alternative, although I don't believe that eating healthfully and reducing our toxic burden and calming down the nervous system is really alternative. I mean, I think that's how we're designed to live, but my dad did that. And so my dad is still alive today. So he was walking throughout his cancer journey, and my nephew walked through all of that. And I witnessed all of this alongside of all the things that I had already experienced in my own health. And I spent the next 2 years really processing and thinking, what do I want to do with this? What am I going to do with this knowledge that I feel like I was so blessed to see? And I really think my nephew was sent here with a mission to teach and to reveal things to us. So about 2 years in, I heard about this career called health coaching. And I was like, whoa, I could actually make a career out of teaching other people how to live healthfully, inviting them to see possibilities and to find hope instead of this very disempowering existence that I had experienced and people in my family. So I went back to school for integrative nutrition. I started coaching. I just wanted to learn more and more and more. I continued my education in applied functional medicine and naturopathy. And I've been doing it for almost a decade, and I pretty much have not stopped the learning. But the biggest learning for me has really occurred in the working with real human beings and real people. So today, as a functional wellness coach, what that means and what I do is I help people get underneath all of their symptoms. So the symptoms, whatever those symptoms are, whether it's migraine headaches and insomnia, hormone imbalance, anxiety, depression, inflammation, you name it. Think of those symptoms as being like the very, very top of the tree, and the leaves even on the tree. Well, we want to get underneath, and we want to look for where's the breakdown in function that's leading to the symptoms. Do we have weakened digestion? Do we have glucose imbalance? Do we have dehydration? Do we have poor cellular metabolism? Like, where is the breakdown? And then we don't stop there. So we might identify the breakdown in function, but we want to get underneath, and we want to look for the cracks in the foundation of the house. So we all live in a house. Our body is our house. And instead of going to the tippy top of the 3rd floor and seeing the crack in the wall or the crack in the window and slapping some duct tape and spackle up there, we want to get down to foundation and build a really, really strong house. And so we look for cracks in the really important foundations of functional wellness, the things that help our body to feel and function their very, very best. So when I am working with clients, I'm helping them shift function. It's all about shifting function. In my years of experience and doing this work, it doesn't matter what people come to me with, because those are symptoms. Labels, you can have 25 labels of diseases like I did. But we want to get underneath, because the cool part is the body is so interconnected that when we start to address the cracks and foundations and we fill them in and we give the body what it needs more of or maybe less of, create a healing environment, it affects everything. So it's not like we have 25 different diseases we need to address at all. It's all about that breakdown in function. So I feel so blessed to be able to do what I do. I'm just a guide. I'm an educator. I'm shining some light for people on their path forward. And in doing what I do in a coaching relationship, I am also very blessed to have this time and space to dig in with my clients and talk about the other things that are coming up, the resistance, the limiting beliefs. I'm not worthy of healing. Like, let's dive into all of that, because you can go to a one-out practitioner and receive some testing and some recommendations for protocols and supplements and all of that, and change your diet. But for many, many people, that doesn't move the needle, because they have to dive into all of the other things, and they need to do it layer by layer and experience the transformation and practice. And so having someone coach them through that, guide them through that, that makes me think a lot, honestly, of yoga, because you know how in yoga, you invite people to find their edge. What's their edge, right? You find it and you hold. And so what I'm doing with my clients is we're going to find your edge, and we're going to hold, and then we're going to talk about where's that resistance that's coming up that might be blocking your healing. So the long story, but that's how I landed doing what I do today.
Wow. I mean, that's such an amazing personal story that tied you into doing what you do. I mean, a lot of people have a personal story, but yours is so impactful and so many layers to it. And you had this not catharsis, this realization when you met that nurse, and it just literally changed the course of your life. Because it sounded like you were doing something, you were a teacher, you said before.
I was an elementary school teacher, and I made a complete career change, stepped away from that. When I look back, I think, wow, my bachelor's is in psychology and my master's is in education, and I'm still doing those things.
Yeah.
I'm still using them, but man, did my life take a very different path.
Totally.
And what I have really found is that it's oftentimes through the hard things in life, the abrasion in life, that we are most guided, that we are taught, that we are called higher, that our purpose is revealed. And so all of those things that I've walked through my life, I don't look back on any of them with regret at all. I'm so grateful, because they enabled me to do what I do today. They helped give me insight. They challenged me. They taught me. All of them were my teachers.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, I hear what you're saying about the symptoms don't really matter. We want to kind of get to the root. I'm curious though, when people come to you, they're probably coming to you because of the symptoms that are concerning to them. And you may see in that first session that underneath it, there's something blocking them or something contributing that's more in the mindset space. Or even just for someone like yourself, when that doctor said that thing to you when you were 19, you carried this belief that on some level must have had some impact on the progression of your medical situation, because the mindset piece has an effect. So how, when you work with someone, when they first come to you, how do you sort of guide them to some of those realizations?
Absolutely. So every single person that comes here is a very unique bio-individual, and I honor them as such. I don't look at any person that sits before me with any prejudgment, because they are them and their stories are theirs.
Yeah.
So what I'm really looking to do when I first meet someone is hear their story. And what I will often use this analogy of puzzles, like puzzle pieces. So you might be a 5,000 piece puzzle, and someone else might be a 500 piece puzzle. And there could be someone who's a 10,000 piece puzzle of a lake. But we know that all of our pieces, we were created in wholeness, right? So all of those pieces will eventually go together. What we want to do is we want to dump them out on the table and spread them out and start looking for the corners and the edges, so that we come up with that initial path forward that's going to help move the needle for that unique individual. And because everyone has their stories and their background, and you're coming to me with very, very different things, part of my job that I've gotten better and better at over the years is the discernment and where do we start. So we're always going to start by looking at those functional foundations. You know, we're going to look at your diet because every single human needs an anti-inflammatory, blood sugar balancing diet filled with lots of nutrients. But see, there's not a perfect diet for every single person. So we have to figure that out. And then we need to look at digestion, and we need, is digestion weak? Do we have overgrowths going on in the gut? Are we inflamed? Is the gut inflamed? Is that inhibiting the absorption of minerals and vitamins? And then those things are impacting the nervous system. So the nervous system is very, very big. We need to look at the things that are dysregulating nervous system. But some of the things that are dysregulating this person might not all just be in their mind and their emotional state and emotional dysregulation. They could have a lot of inflammation that has them feeling like they're on fire. So when they come to me, you are correct in that most people come here because they have a physical pain that's not going away. They cannot find, they're not able to find answers. They're trying all of these different interventions, and they might have spent a lot of time working on their mindset. I met with a woman this morning who has worked with a therapist for a really long time. She's done an anti-inflammatory diet. She's like, I figured I've tried all of these really restrictive diets and they all make me feel really good. And the second that I stray, I feel like I'm on fire. And so in listening to her, I'm thinking we need to dig a little deeper and to see what are the physiological things. Is there bacterial overgrowth? Is there something going on in her gut that's really inflaming her? And then of course that creates anxiety, and then you can't sleep. So with each person, it really is just this, I mean, like I said, although I'm gonna go work through all of the foundational building blocks, and we're gonna look for cracks, it's a discernment on my part as to where do we start. And that's part of that initial intake with people, where I want to hear your story. I want to hear the timeline throughout your life. I might take a look at lab work, and I use my intuition, and the intuition for me has just grown and grown over the years.
Yeah.
And so far as my discernment on where do we start with this person, because we need that cycle breaker. Like every single person needs that thing that's going to help them also feel really confident. I want people to start to feel like, whoa, I feel a little bit better. I have a little more energy now, and now I have more energy so I can show up for this process.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's interesting because, you know, it's almost like you're playing the role of the primary care physician, the endocrinologist, the gastroenterologist, the cardiologist. It's almost like all of the things that you're addressing are things that each one of the individual specialties could address, but they don't address. And even though you're not a physician, you're touching on all those areas and you're looking at the person comprehensively, which no one really does, especially when, like, you're a perfect example. When you had what you were going through, the OBGYN was looking at it through their eyes. And then maybe the endocrinologist that had certain hormones you were taking were looking at it through their eyes. And it's really one of the problems with the healthcare system for someone who has a multi-layered problem. They don't have someone like you that looks at them. I mean, even just the intake you do is probably, I mean, most people can relate to going to their annual physical and getting maybe 5 minutes with their doctor. And you're probably spending, 45 minutes to an hour just letting the person talk about everything going on with them. So yeah, I could see it being definitely needed, especially by someone who's struggling to come to the bottom of whatever their problem is. When you are working with someone, especially if they have a history of medical problems, how do you interact with the other people that they're seeing who are in the medical arena? Do they know that you're working with the patient? I mean, how does that work?
Sure. Best case scenario, we enter into this partnership because we're all here for this person. So
Yeah.
my client, I'm here to help guide them forward. It is outside of my scope of practice to diagnose, to treat.
Yeah.
And I actually never, I always tell people, I never tell you what to do. I'm not here to fix you. I'm
Yeah.
here to guide you, educate you, inspire you, shine the light on that path to move forward. But at the end of the day, I want to help empower you to
Sure.
really tap into that physician within you. We each have that physician within us. Every one of us has this inner knowing of our own body, and nobody, not a doctor out, and there's like nobody that can actually tell us what's really best for us. Sometimes we need the education. We need to be able to read the owner's manual that we have in our hands. We can't read it.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is, if somebody comes to me and they're coming to me on a whole list of different medications, which that happens very frequently, and I can see that some of the medications that they're on are hindering their progression forward. I just educate. So I'm going to give some examples. A very common, especially women in midlife. So I'll have a woman in midlife who's been struggling maybe for a decade. So she started with some digestive stuff. So she got put on a proton pump inhibitor that shuts down stomach acid completely.
That's
So
like your Pepsid or your.
Pepsid, your Zantac, exactly. Now we don't have digestive fire at all. So we're not even breaking down or denaturing the protein we're eating. We're not pulling out minerals. Now this person is really, really nutrient deficient by the time they come here. Well, what is that impacted? Well, that's impacted their mood and their sleep. So they also now have been put on an SSRI, an antidepressant. Neurotransmitters are formed in our gut. We also need different amino acids as precursors to make neurotransmitters, but they don't have good absorption, so they're on an SSRI. They might also have some anxiety, so perhaps like a benzo. And so they're on those things. And over time, they've also developed some insulin resistance, metabolic dysfunction, and their cholesterol is getting high. So the doctor recommends a statin to help with the cholesterol. Oh man, are they tired? They're really, really, really tired, because statins are known to deplete CoQ10, which is a master antioxidant that also helps affect mitochondrial health, energy, right? So think about energy. So here's a very common dynamic. I will educate them. All I'm doing is educating. It is their choice at the end of the day. And I want to hear, what are their goals? Like, do they want to come off the meds? Most of the people say, yes, I do, because I've tried it and I'm not getting better. I'm actually getting worse. So,
Yeah.
I will then explain what that looks like, insofar as we want to build strength up in your body, strengthen those foundations, and move slowly, but you must work with your doctor. So work with the doctor, let the doctor know that you're working with me. And now we're entering into this triage of care, this partnership. And when my clients have a doctor that is for them,
Mm,
becoming their best self, oh my gosh, it's amazing. It's awesome.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I can see that. I mean, it's almost like you're empowering them to advocate for themselves. So
yeah,
even though you're not prescribing anything or changing their treatment plan, you're giving them information about not even alternatives, just more information about their body and how these medicines are impacting their body. And if their experiences, they're not helping them, they can now hopefully go back to their doctor and say, hey, look, I'm working with this person. I have some questions about, should I really be taking this Pepsid? It doesn't seem to be helping me. And it's also having these other side effects I'm learning about. Would you be willing to, drop that prescription for me? I feel like that patient advocacy piece, people don't often feel empowered to advocate for themselves because they just don't know how to
yeah,
do it. They're sort of just taking the doctor's recommendation. And when they don't have a better experience, they're not sure where to turn.
absolutely. At the end of the day, it's nobody else's responsibility
Right.
to care for our own health. It
Right.
is not our doctors, it is not our governments, it's not our health insurance company. They're not necessarily looking out for our best interests. We need to educate ourselves on our own bodies. We need to educate ourselves on what helps us to feel and function our very best.
Right.
And it
Right.
can be a paradigm shift for people, because we
Well, you want to believe, I mean, it's not even so much about that they're not looking out for the health. It's just that you often defer to your doctor as, I'll take what the person says and
yes. Oh, yeah.
do
And
it
I'm
that.
not at all putting down allopathic
Yeah.
medicine. it is what it is, but it has limitations.
Sure.
My own personal PCP, we've become good friends over the years, we professionally and personally, and I refer a lot of people to her. And if she knows that I'm working with one of her patients, she may say like order different labs, deeper
Sure,
or
sure.
labs, because she knows that I'm there helping guide them through. But she and I have had some honest conversations that have helped me. She's like, Jen, I oversee 3,000 patients in the healthcare system. I have 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes with each of them. I cannot ask them about their diet, the toxins in their lifestyle, their emotional state. I mean, and so what am I going to do when they come to me and they
Right,
say, I get off a statin? Uh,
right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
no, it's difficult. So what does it look like when someone is working with you? Is it like a 30-day thing, a 6-month thing? Like, how does that, are you getting them to a point where they've reached a particular goal and then they go off on their way? How does that look?
sure. So I work with people in 4-month increments, and it doesn't mean that there's a magic number in four
Yeah,
months. My packaging is we are meeting regularly. So they purchase a coaching package and we meet regularly. And in that time, we're working through we're looking for the cracks in the foundations.
yeah,
We're step by step inviting their body into this healing environment.
yeah,
So at the very beginning, there might be more lab work that we get. We might do some functional testing. That's in my one-on-one coaching. And I've been one-on-one coaching now for almost a decade. So I love, love, love that. I did recently build out a group coaching program because I feel like I cannot help enough people
yeah,
in that model. And so my group coaching program walks people together in a group, and that is 4 months as well. But we're walking through all of the foundations of functional wellness. And I am really, really teaching my clients in the group to be super sleuths. Like I am not doing a stool test in the group coaching program, but I will teach them about the gut, and I will teach them what to look for. And there are some self-assessments. And if they feel they have weak digestion, I have some suggested regimens that they can implement, and then they want to pay attention. So it's not as customized, but it's really, really thorough. So that's the group. And then if they've gone through the group and then they want to tack on some one-on-one sessions with me so we can do some deeper work or dive into their lab work, they can do that, but they have to have gone through the
yeah,
foundations. I want every single person to understand their body really, really well. My
yeah,
goal is to teach people to be the drivers of their own health. I want them to be empowered with an understanding of how our bodies work,
yeah,
from cellular hydration and how important it is to be hydrated on a cellular level, to how do you, what tools do you pull out of your toolbox when life hits? Because life is going to hit, whether you get hit with a really nasty virus or you have an acute loss and you're going through a season of grief. And that takes some hits at your nervous system
right.
and your gut. And what are you going to do to pivot? And so my one-on-one clients, what they typically do is they'll just continue. So if they want to continue with me, because we just got started after 4 months, everyone's different. It really depends. Can we make a lot of progress in 4 months? Yes. But if you're coming and you're on a laundry list of medications, and we have 4 different autoimmune diseases that are flaring right now, and we want to calm all of that down, it takes time. It just takes time. And I don't rush. I don't rush the body. I don't want to rush that person's mind. We really want to honor the process and move forward with it, in a way that's transformative.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious, when you work with people, do you find that they all sort of fit this profile of being really highly motivated? Because I I think about myself, I'm very diligent about my own healthcare and I have a lot of agency over what I do. And if I ever have anything that's going on, I am very much sharing with my doctors that I'm going to advocate for myself a lot. So just get ready because I'm not going to just take what you say and run with it. Like, I'm going to be a partner with you. And that takes a lot of due diligence, a lot of motivation, a lot of being self-driven. And I'm wondering, is that sort of the general profile of the kind of person that would work with you? Because it sounds like that would sort of need to be baked into the kind of person who would go outside the traditional medical care system to sort of get an advocate for them that can see them as a whole person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think for some people, maybe they're not aware that
Yeah.
someone like yourself is available with your skill set. Um, and for other people, I wonder, when people aren't feeling well, sometimes there's a whole bunch of feelings that can come up. Fear, I don't know that I can, especially if there's literal disease, I don't know if I can beat this, or someone like when you were growing up, having something that's more long-term and chronic, and people just sort of fall into a little bit of a passive role, sort of an accepting role. Oh, I'm just trusting the doctors have, the best approach in mind. So I'm curious, do your clients tend to fall into that category where they're just really motivated to to live a healthy life, as healthy as it is possible for them?
That's a phenomenal question. So you just laid out what would be the ideal client,
Yeah.
right? And I have a screening process, and it really is because I know what works. I am so confident in
Yeah.
what works and what doesn't work. And I've been doing this for a really long time. I've worked
Yeah.
with a lot of people. There was a time where I took absolutely anybody into the practice, and there is nothing sadder to me than to see somebody who isn't ready for this journey, and this they invest time and money, and then they walk away and they don't receive anything from it, and they're not receiving anything from it. But part of it is because they weren't ready to do this, and they weren't having that paradigm shift that, like, all right, I'm going to
Yeah.
do the work. I'm going to show up for this. I'm
Mhm.
really available for this. I'm really coachable. I'm going to bring all the stuff to the table. I'm going to talk to Jen about all my resistance. I'm great, bring it.
Mhm.
So they're more still standing in a very allopathic approach. And by that, I mean, fix me, tell me what to do. Like, I
Mhm.
don't tell you what to do. I can invite you. It's your choice. I'm going to educate you, but you're the one who needs to do it. And so when they're in the fix me mode, but yet they also can struggle with um, hmm, stepping outside of the identity of being sick.
Yeah.
So when we're not ready to release our story and we're clinging to
Mm,
our story, we're
yeah.
not ready for the shift. And that's not at all a statement of blame. I have so
Yeah.
much compassion for
Yeah.
people who are really, really stuck in their story. But I can't help people who are still stuck in their story because I can't help people who aren't willing to help themselves. So today, again, because it's not my first rodeo, I mean, I have an application, and then we have a discovery call. And on the discovery call, that discovery call is actually more for me.
Right.
By
You're
the time you
seeing.
get on the phone with me, I would hope that through my
Yeah.
screen, you're committed to doing it, but I really want to see where you are and what you believe the healing process to be. And I know that people don't know what they don't know. Like, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I can get a good sense of whether someone is going to grab on to a new way of thinking. Like, I have had some clients that it's just so beautiful to witness, who have done all the things in the allopathic world. I have an example of a client who I worked with last year. I worked with her for about 9 months. She was not even 40 years old yet. She had had a hysterectomy. Her gallbladder was removed. She had a stroke in her early 30s from being on birth control pills. She was on a proton pump inhibitor. She was on a statin, an SSRI, oh, and blood pressure medication. And she felt horrible. And she's like, I mean, I don't know what more they can do or take out of me, but I know there's a better way. I know that my life is worth living. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and I think I eat pretty healthfully, but like nothing is working. I am willing. And she was so open to
Yeah.
hearing way, but yet she didn't know about the different way. She was just caught up in the system for
Right.
so very long, but she hit this place of like, I don't know what the different way is, but I'm really open to learning. And so in our time together, she came off every single medication. Oh, and migraine medicines too. She had had migraines at least four migraines a month for over a decade, which needed migraine medicine. I just did a touch base with her recently, just to touch base and do some, lab work and catch up with her. She's like, Jen, I haven't touched a migraine med in like a year. And I know, and off all of that medication, but she was so open to learning, learning about her body, learning how to support functional foundations. We did a lot of diving into worth because she didn't feel that she was worthy of good health. She was worthy of using her voice to advocate for herself because in a lot of ways, she was experiencing a lot of medical gaslighting for so many years, which had her feeling very, very disempowered. So we found her voice again, and she learned what her body needed to feel and function its very best. And she's a beautiful case study of the client that comes that's
Yeah.
ready. So they might not necessarily come in like you or I, like
Mhm.
in the health and wellness space, and
Right.
we're doing our own research and we're educating ourselves. So we go to our doctor and we're like, I am here for a reason. I'm really smart. I've done my research. So let's have a conversation because you're not going to talk down to me. We are partners. We're equals. We're both human beings. So not
Right.
everyone like that,
Right.
but there needs to be a willingness
Yeah.
to learn a different way. And I tell every single person, I do not have a magic wand. I wish I did. I've looked for it. It doesn't exist. I do not have a crystal ball.
Mhm.
Again, wish that exists, but it does not. So I can't scan you and tell you exactly all the things that are out of balance in your body. But
Mhm.
I know a path and I have a system where
Yeah.
we're going to look. And then this is where that client has to show up. You're going to lean in and listen. And
Yeah.
your body, that physician within you, is going to guide us and guide us forward in the process.
Mhm. Yeah, that's amazing. It reminds me, I recently, in my work with yoga teachers and the program I have, it's definitely not for everybody. And it definitely requires a yoga teacher who's ready to feel more confident, to feel more empowered when she teaches, to drop a lot of the beliefs that yoga teachers have that hold them back from really showing up authentically. And a couple of weeks ago, I just reminded myself of that 4 stages of change quadrant that I forget the psychologist's name. But I re-Googled it when I was doing, and I think you mentioned this, my certified personal trainer exam with NASM. That was part of the training to understand when you meet with a client where they're at in that quadrant of personal change. And I remember that last quadrant being, not only is the person ready, but they've tried other things on their own and it hasn't worked for them. And they're coachable and they're ready to get help. And in fact, they're already doing research to find someone that can help them. So it sounds like for you, those are the kind of people that you are interviewing or talking to, and you're saying to yourself, this is someone who I can really help. They're not in that other stage where they're just thinking about changing, but I'm sort of curious. This is a little bit off topic, but not exactly. It's definitely topical in the public eye, which is all of the weight suppressant drugs, the
The
GLP inhibitors,
GLP-1s, yeah.
GLP-1 inhibitors. And I'm curious, how are you sort of navigating the use of those with clients, or are you seeing clients that take them? What's sort of your philosophy on that? Um, just in general.
Well, it's sad because there's a lot of known side effects to the GLP-1 drugs that are out there right now, and we don't know the long-term effects, right? So I look at them like I look at statins.
Yeah.
Um, we're not, I mean, we are so far from addressing root cause. It's not facilitating any life transformation or change in that person. I have not worked with any clients, like they're not coming to me on them. I have worked, actually, I'm working with a few right now who tried them,
Okay.
didn't feel well on them, or I had one who tried it and then it was back ordered, so she couldn't get it. And as soon as she wasn't on it for a period of time, she started to gain weight, and she was like, whoa. And that was a great thing for her, because she realized that nothing in her life was changing. She wasn't actually eating any differently. She wasn't addressing any of the things that really, really matter in her health. And so she had a light bulb moment where she was like, I think I got to do the work.
Yeah.
And she came here to really learn how to do the work. So I find those drugs to be really sad. They're distracting. They're not honoring who we are and our needs as human beings. There are side effects, just like there are side effects to every other medication that's out there. And there are medications that people need to be on that are life-saving. And we manage that, right? And we become aware of potential side effects, and maybe we can mitigate. But to be on a drug by choice like that, now I've had people argue with me and say, yes, but Jen, these are people, we have a nation full of people who are unwilling to do the things that you invite people to do. So isn't it saving their life? That's sad. I just think that that's really sad. And what are we doing for those people? Are we educating them? I mean, like, we're poisoning people with our standard American diet, and there's so many toxins that are in the environment. And so, I mean,
Yeah,
maybe,
when I watched the Oprah special 2 weeks ago on it, I think there was this niche of people who they talked to some young girls who were chronically overweight
yeah,
as kids, like
yeah,
literally from like toddlers
yeah,
up. And there were some physicians on the special who were basically making a case for there is a niche group of people who have a clinical
right,
obesity issue,
right.
and especially when it starts at like 2 and 3 and 4 years old,
Yes.
um, that even with controlling their food intake, which is obvious for a child, they're not having access to their own food and
Mhm.
still they're gaining weight even when the mother is.
Yeah.
They were specifically presenting to women who grew up with obesity, and they couldn't, anything they did couldn't control it. So for them,
That's
this,
life.
yeah, I mean, and they had also had the stomach stapling surgery on
Yeah.
top of it. So, they tried the surgical intervention and that didn't work. So, yeah, it's I mean, I love the holistic approach that you have. I think it's so important. I'm sort of wondering, in the last few minutes here, especially because a lot of people listening are yoga teachers, what's your thought on the role of movement in sort of the menu of things that you talk to people about?
Right. Oh, yeah. So movement is a foundation
Yeah.
of our overall health. We have to move. If we're
Yep.
not moving, we are not living. There
Yeah.
is an amazing woman who is still alive. She's 103. Her name is Dr. Gladys McGarry. If anyone listening is interested, just put her name into YouTube and you will be blown away. She is the doctor of holistic medicine. So her and her former husband were the ones who even came up with the term holistic medicine back in the 50s. And she actually, she'll talk about what she even does to this day to keep herself going and alive. And she moves 3,800 steps every single day. That's about what she is capable of doing at this stage of her life. And she talks about, if I stop moving, if any of us stop moving, we're dead, like we're dead. So movement is very, very important. Movement, there's gray space there too, because it depends on that person that is coming to me. So if they're coming to me and they've been more in a catabolic breakdown state for years. Maybe that's due to very high stress. They've got a lot of inflammation. There's a lot of breakdown in their gut. Maybe they were like I was. I was a runner. So for years, I was a runner and a CrossFitter. And so even the story I shared with you, and yes, I made massive changes. No, I did not step away from that. I mean, running to me, I was the person who owned the t-shirt that said, I run to burn off the crazy. And I thought that was legit. I did not know any other way. People would invite me to do yoga and I would twitch on the mat. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Like, I want to move, right? And so when I hit 40, I had been CrossFitting. I had done a Tough Mudder and a half marathon within 2 months of one another. And my body screamed at me to slow it the heck down. I got so sick. I gained weight, and I entered a season of needing to restore and rebuild. And so everything I did, it needed to be restorative and rebuilding. It couldn't do exercises that were catabolic. I just couldn't do it because the second I started, inflammation. So I had so much deeper healing to be had. So that didn't serve me at that time. So I actually did learn to love yoga and walking and slow movement, anything that would restore. And it was hard until it wasn't, and it became a very beautiful part of my healing. So when I'm working with people, I help them assess, where are you? And we might have addictions even to, like, it runs the gamut here, Karen. I mean, you could have people like me who are addicted to spinning, CrossFit, right? As we age in midlife, and I work with a lot of women in midlife, we want less cardio and we want more weight resistance that's going to challenge our muscles, because we lose muscle in midlife naturally. So we're going to lose muscle due to the decline in estrogen and other sex hormones. And then we also become more insulin sensitive due to the decline in estrogen. So building that muscle is going to help our bones. It's going to help our metabolic health, our heart health. So that's very important. And but I also find that a lot of women in many stages of life, but especially in midlife, we are being invited to calm down the mind. So that monkey mind, that racing mind that's keeping us stuck in fight or flight. So how can we use movement to help that? Walking is hands down one of my very favorite movements for all of us human beings. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be in an inflamed state like I was. Walk every single day. Walking actually was part of how I learned to slow down, and I would touch things, and I would touch tree bark and look at the sky and listen to the birds. Walking was easier for me than going to a yoga class, and in the very beginning when I was learning how to slow down. So I teach women the importance of moving. We cannot just sit all day long. We live in a very, very stationary society and culture. We just sit. Like, go to work, sit. And it's causing all kinds of problems for us. So we start with, you got to move. And then what does that look like for you? And then depending on where you are. So having a combination, like having movement that's very restorative. I love, love, love in yoga, how it connects the mind to the body. It actually helps us slow down our mind, because I know for myself, when I was learning to appreciate yoga, balancing in a pose, it helps quiet everything, because all I was focusing on was that connection to that pose. It was so lovely. And it was such a refreshing break for me that then in turn, that helped me heal, because that calmed the nervous system, which then had a profound effect on my gut health and my cortisol regulation, right? Yeah.
Plus all the muscular benefits of strengthening your hips and,
Oh my gosh, I wasn't tight. I mean, I spent decades of my life tight. Everything was tight. I couldn't touch my toes. Yes. So movement is so important, keeping ourselves limber and flexible as we age.
Yeah.
That it's critical.
Yeah, I find for myself, I'm 59, I'll be 60 in September, and I also was a big runner. I ran marathons and half marathons. And one of the hardest things for me is walking and not running,
Oh,
and
yeah.
kind of appreciating that it's okay that I'm walking briskly. I mean, I have a dog, so I get to walk the dog, and he walks pretty fast. So I think that helps me pick up the pace. But just detaching from it only checks the box if I'm running, and appreciating that at this stage of my life, I don't need to be running as much.
Yeah.
I can get benefits from doing a lot of walking, taking the dog for extra walks, and spending more time in the weight room than doing 5 runs a day and sweating from running and somehow feeling like that's the only thing that checks the box.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a very old story from our younger years. And so for those of us who in our younger years were cardio queens,
Right,
and it worked for us at the time,
right.
but that doesn't serve us. So in midlife, we become so much more adrenal centric than we are ovarian centric. And
Yeah.
our ovarian reserve is declining. I mean, we're checking out, and that's okay. That's a beautiful natural part of aging.
Right.
But our adrenal glands, which regulate cortisol, and then also DHEA, which is a master hormone that mitigates inflammation and helps make our other sex hormones. I mean, we have to really be very, very mindful of the stressors in our life. So going for those long runs isn't going to serve you in midlife the way walking is. Walking is so beautiful because it's combining the movement in the body, but it's also supporting our cortisol regulation. We're outside in nature. We're quieting the noise of the world. We're getting away from our computers. Hopefully, we're dragging with us and staring at
Yeah.
our phone the whole time. And we're quieting the mind.
Yeah, I know from a lot of the people that listen to my podcast, they'll write me that they listen to it on walks. So like
Yeah.
listening to a podcast on a
Yeah.
walk is like such a double checking the boxes because you can learn
Well,
so
I find it like it's like I love to walk and learn. I find it to be a treat instead of like
exactly.
working. And then also there's other beautiful benefits too. I mean, it supports our cortisol awakening response. If we can go outside in the
Yeah.
sunshine within
Yes.
3 minutes, hour of waking, it supports our circadian rhythm. So our sleep, like when we spend time in the sunshine during the day, and gosh, we can walk, like you said, check off boxes.
Yeah,
We check
exactly.
off so many boxes, and then we're sleeping deeper. If we're not sleeping deep, we're going to struggle with inflammation. We're going to struggle with weight loss resistance, with
Yep.
anxiety. Yeah.
No, I love that. I really think it's important, especially because I know a lot of my listeners are women, to just acknowledge that there is that sort of shift in exercise identity that if
Oh, yeah.
we fight
That's good.
that, we're going to probably have more problems with our body than if we ease into that shift in our exercise identity.
Mhm.
And okay to maybe just run once a week, or maybe make the run shorter, or,
Yeah.
fast or whatever. So I love that. So let's do this. Why don't you share with people, especially because you mentioned a group program and one-on-one, can you let people know how they can connect with you and how they can find out more about what you offer? Because I bet there's somebody listening who this is resonating with and they might want to reach out.
Absolutely. My website is jenniferragazzo.com. And you can learn more about my Vibrant Rise functional wellness coaching programs there. So I have the intensive, which is my one-on-one. I have the collective, which is the group program. And some point this summer, I will have the academy, which is going to be just I'm going to have like a jumpstart program as well. I have a private podcast that I'm releasing shortly that's going to be free for people, just to give you some jumpstart into some functional tips, foundational tips that will help you really begin to move yourself forward. And I have a free guide that I can also share with your audience as well.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Yeah, I can send that out to my mailing list, which covers, some of the people that will listen, and then also they'll have your contact info.
And I'm very active on Instagram too. So if you want to follow me on
What's
Instagram,
your,
I'm in your stories a lot. So it's jennifer.ragazzo.
okay, got it.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Well, this was amazing. This was so much fun. I'm so glad we sort of like met each other in that Facebook group for podcasters and then talked on the phone and now here you are on the show. So I'm so glad we had this opportunity to talk. And I really feel like this is just touching on so many different valuable topics for my listeners, both as people and also as teachers and teachers movement. So thank you so much. This will actually go live on Monday. I just like this really short window. So yeah, so I will send you the link on Monday and then you can share it. You can listen to it and send it to your friends and family and have them take advantage of, I'm sure they already know about all your knowledge, but it's always fun to go for a walk and listen to you share your wisdom. So thank you so much. I really appreciated it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Take care.
Okay. I will send you an email when that comes out on Monday.
Awesome.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Good day. Bye-bye.
Thanks for being here with me today. I hope you enjoyed it. And hey, one more thing. While I don't know you personally, I know what a yoga teacher looks like who's ready to work with me. She's ready to take action. She's looking for someone who has the answers she needs. She knows she's worth the investment. She can't wait to get all her prep time back. And she's excited to make a positive change. If that's you, DM me the words podcast offer to my Instagram, and I will give you a special incentive to work with me inside my signature program. My Instagram handle is Bare Bones Yoga. I can't wait to hear from you.